Hey, everybody. I'm Scott Homan, the director of the film Witness Underground. I want to give you a little intro about the film and some background about the project. You can watch the film now. You can go to witnessunderground.com to learn more about the project. It is available in one location, patreon.com/Witness Underground. That film is deeply personal to me, and I want to give some background about it. First, subscribe to the channel if you like what we're doing, and if you are a fan of the film or have been following the film, it means a lot to the algorithms. And once we hit 1,000 subscribers, then a lot of other things are allowed to happen on the channel. The film is Witness Underground. It is a documentary about artists who leave a cult, and that cult happens to be about the Jehovah's Witnesses. My family are in it. My dad joined it. I grew up around it, I would say, not so much in it. The XJW Coming Out project was the origin of the whole project. And it started back in 2016. I was traveling, met an ex-witness in Germany, and I'd been thinking about how to tell the story, and he had a really funny thing he likes to tell people. It's not funny, it's a personal thing, but he often tells people he came out twice. He's a gay man who left. He came out as gay, but he also left this religion, so he calls it his coming out. And I thought that was brilliant. And there's a lot of parallels to the LGBT community and the former cult member, or the I Got Out movement. The coming out stories of former Jehovah's Witnesses was the origin project. And that project was sort of a trial and error learning experience that led to the making of this film. It was started out as a number of interviews I did with different people. I'd get one camera when I was traveling with him. When I was traveling and I met him, I had one camera and a basic mic setup. So I was like, you know what, let's just try it. Let me have you tell your story on camera. And it was just on his balcony in his house, in his apartment. And the idea would be him telling his coming out story, cut to him doing his real life, his normal life. So we went to some bars, we saw him working at a restaurant, traveling a bit around urban areas of Munich. I did that with a woman in Vietnam, also LGBT, and then one of my close friends from In the Religion who also left around the same time as me, Ross, who we kind of did the pilot episode with. Same idea, showing their real life as they're telling their leaving their religion story. And I use those terms pretty interchangeably with this particular religion, cult and religion. And it just came up in a call we did with the patrons on the Patreon channel, that it's a kind of a new idea for me, but people don't join cults on purpose. And people don't, it's easy to call some group a cult if you don't know anyone who's a part of it, or if you don't understand it, because it's pretty derogatory. And so, most people who leave this religion take years or maybe never use that term, cult. It's a side point, but I use that term freely because there's a number of things that make this group a cult. And the big three are shunning. That's very universal. Everyone who is in that religion deals with shunning from their family, which is a complete cutoff, like zero communication from family. And if you do ever contact them for some reason, it's very superficial. And like their scripts are running, their guard is up. They don't talk to you like a normal human being. And it's not the relationship you might have had or wish to have with a family member. They're almost robotic. Like my friend calls it, their tapes are running, like or just the scripts are running, like the religion has programmed them to respond to certain ideas, topics, or people in a certain way. And they have like straight lines out of a book that they have been conditioned to utilize. That is the number one thing that my film is about, and the project generally is about. But everyone has their own, whatever they're into, they bring up, and that is whatever they want to talk about in the interviews. The other two are, the big one is, and the other two are illegal. Shunning, I think, should be illegal. It is an act of hatred, and it is the exact opposite of a loving situation. I'm back on shunning. It is a kind of solitary confinement, like what we do to our worst prisoners, and that does deep psychological damage and causes PTSD. There's a special term for it in the clinical psychology world, RTS, religious trauma syndrome. It's a form of PTSD. that is just kind of becoming more widely known, and it's real, and it is reinforced every time we have an interaction with family, or triggered whenever there's it can be triggered for a number of reasons. Anyway, that's a real psychological issue. So I feel like shunning is like the biggest topic, but it's not illegal, and it should be, or at least it should be punishable in some form. The other ones are illegal, and those are, there's a cat there. Those are child sexual abuse, which is rampant in the Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know yet of a single congregation that didn't have an issue with that, with pedophilia and like predatory older men going after younger women. That's rampant in that religion, and the religion then covers up and often kicks out the people who were abused or victims of rape or child sexual abuse, and often goes unchecked for years. And these people are allowed to stay in the religion. They're maybe punished internally with, like, you don't get to be an elder anymore, you don't get to have a position of authority in this group anymore, but the victim has to face their perpetrator. That kind of stuff happens all the time, and it's in cases all the time. There's hundreds of legal cases about this. There was 1,006 protected pedophiles found in Australia, one country, and this religion's in almost every country in the world. They claim to be in every country in the world, so almost certainly they are harboring pedophiles and not reporting them to the authorities in all of those same countries. There are 9 on trial right now in Pennsylvania. And then the other big one is refusal of medical care. In the very specific terms, it is blood transfusions, and it's a way for the religion to gain martyrs. If anyone, I was doing the numbers the other day. According to what I have read from the American Medical Association, I can't find this document anymore. They may have pulled it, but there's a PDF that they put out that was like, on this religion, they believe there's like 30,000, at least on most conservative numbers, 30,000 people have died because of their refusal of blood. And just given the size of the families and the deep connection to the religion, probably there are about 3 million plus people who have like deep connected directly to the death from refusal of medical care through the blood transfusion. And if you do get it, I wasn't expecting to talk about this. If you do get one, you are ostracized from your community. People treat you like you have the plague in that religion, and you're essentially shunned within the faith, but still allowed to participate in like the public stuff, but not necessarily friends. People are like scared of people who have blood transfusions. It's very strange. It's cultural. Maybe they don't teach that, but that's what's going on. And if you get one, you might get kicked out of the religion for getting one. If you're not kicked out, you're treated that strange way. That's really hurtful to people, damaging, abusive tactics. It's very strange. And if you and every single member has to carry a legal card that gives the religion the authority to refuse the medical care for you, and they often go to the hospital to make sure that you don't get it. They might actually help you get other medical care instead of blood, but there's not much of a substitute for blood. It does a lot of essential things for your body, as I'm sure most of people understand. So that issue keeps on coming up, and it's in a way, an extreme salacious way, I could say, that's a form of human sacrifice, creating martyrs. And if people die from it, it's a way for the religion to retain that for those family members and extended friends and family, because they say the only way you can ever see them again is by staying a member until you die and doing all the things that they want you to do, or you might lose your chance to get into the afterlife. So those people will hang on to this idea of seeing their dead loved one, to use their terms. Those are the big 3: shunning, human sacrifice, and child sexual abuse. Anyway, so this is a cult in short. And I made a project that interviews people who have gone through simply all kinds of things, but usually artists who left the religion. Whether they're artists inside or not doesn't matter. If they're making art now is what I'm interested in, or if they've made art and recorded it in the past. I'd like to discuss that, because it's a very interesting thing that happened, especially in the 80s and 90s in this religion, in only some parts of the country or the world. The film is about people who left in Minneapolis. There's a large music scene there inside the religion, and a lot of those people still make art to this day. and they made art through their exits, and those songs are deeply meaningful about that process, the leaving the cult experience or the leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses experience through music. And the film highlights that in a huge way. And I'm excited for all to watch it. But I want to talk more about the origin. So XJW Coming Out project became this documentary, and it was a long path to that becoming real. And it's been something that's transformed over time, and it's transformed my way of interacting with interviewees in a big way. Like, I have had a lot of personal growth and, I guess, professional creative growth through this project. And because my relationships with the people as I interview them has changed dramatically. One thing that is important about interviewing someone is their trust in you as a filmmaker. It's a kind of intimacy that you have. I make them sign paperwork, which feels strange because it gives me authority to use that content any way that I want. And it's important to get that ahead of time so people don't change their mind later after doing months worth of work on something, or years in the case of the film. But that's another act of trust. Like, that legal document is one more reason, like, for both of us to maintain, like, to stick to our original intentions. And originally, I would sit people down in front of a camera or two with lights and microphones and roll sound and camera and sit down and extract, I don't know, encourage them to tell their story and be vulnerable and get into the deep stuff about their story, their exit, their life. And that was a way of me protecting myself by putting myself off camera. And I liked that for a long time, and I thought that was important. And that's what my training was in kind of interviewing other people's story. So I have a cat singing songs back here. That has changed. So I have since altered my way of interacting, but I'm still sticking true to, and I've done so in a way that, like, includes me on camera, not necessarily by choice. I've tried to not do that. I don't usually like documentary projects that have the filmmaker interject themselves in the other person's story, and I've tried very hard not to do that, but it has made sense to start doing that, and that has led to me sitting with the person on camera more talk show style, where I'm interviewing, but it makes the interviewee feel much more comfortable telling this story that they often have never had a chance to tell anyone, because nobody in the religion talks to them, so they can't communicate over that barrier that the religious cult people have erected. And they can't really connect with other people because there's not very many openly ex-religious or ex-cult members around. And it's probably healthy to not hang out with those people very often. But I have found a deep love for those communities. Like, it's almost like I have to make the analogy of like a war veteran hanging out at the VFW with other war veterans. Like, they get it. They understand what it meant to sacrifice something, or like wrap up your identity with this other group. And I love hanging out with ex Jehovah's Witnesses. They're very open and honest and authentic people. And we share something really unique. And I feel like an equal to those people. And most people don't have any idea what that's like, or what that community means to be a part of, or to have been a part of, or how to even relate to these people. And then the general population you can't really talk to those people. So most people I interview have, like, maybe never talked to anyone at all about their story, or if they have, it's been some intimate partner who didn't understand but had the time of day to listen and understood more about that person through time, or through, whatever drama is going on in that person's family life. Stuff has come out, so, like, they might have someone, but still that person probably doesn't even really get it. Like, other ex-witnesses get it. So I have this special relationship with a lot of the people I interview, and I have generally moved towards only interviewing artists, because I feel like artists have expressed themselves, have a form of expression that goes beyond just dialogue or storytelling. It's something that they've felt and expressed and emoted through a piece of art that other people can then go and enjoy and have their own reaction to, positive, negative, emotional or not. Just like, it's something that's deeper than dialogue and deeper than writing. And I love it. And also, it gives me an opportunity to do something I've always loved, which is to put music out into the world and elevate other artists and help support their work and creative activity by simply exposing it to people that care about it. And I feel like I've reached a large community of people, a growing community of people who care about art, and care about these stories being told. And it's a really unique and positive, healing way to tell these stories rather than what's usually portrayed in other documentaries and news programs about this religion, where the newscaster has for the first time discovered these stories, discovered this group of people, and then get them to tell their story. And they're often very well meaning journalists, but the resulting programs that they create from this content have to fit into some, I don't know how to like, emotional arc, and to keep an audience entertained, a general audience. And so they usually get the most vulnerable part of the story, and um, they seem to really care, but what they put on screen is the person getting emotional, telling a sad story, getting emotional, and crying or giving a shaky voice, and then they say how terrible that is, and they roll credits, or the program's over. You never really get to know much about the background. They never really humanize the organization, the life inside the religion or the cult. They never really humanize that person. They just turn them into a sort of exploitable, emotional human being. And I hated that. I don't want to show that to people. I don't want to share that. It doesn't represent my life. And I wanted to make something that I could point to and say, like, watch this, and you'll understand a lot more about my background. And I'm very proud of where I came from. And I'd never have been able to say that about any media on the topic. So I wanted to create something that I can say, like, I had a really cool life, and it was really interesting. And I made strange choices because I was in a strange community. But here you go. Here's a window into that world. And I feel like we accomplished that with Witness Underground. And it was something I was very careful to, and like wanted to include all the people in the film, in the process of editing, in the process of telling their story. They get to see lots and lots of rough cuts, and we had watch parties, and we discussed like different angles and different story arcs that we could do. I hired a story editor, so she did a great job, Sean Walmsley, of cutting down all these long interviews into like a palatable 2 hours of talking heads, and we then cut that down to 80 minutes and a little less than that. Then we put a lot of music back in to fill it out and tell the story properly. But it's essentially, it's almost a musical. It really shows off the music scene, and you get a lot of windows into the kind of music they were making, and it was all very impressive, talented artists in that scene, and that are included in the movie, and talented filmmakers as well, who are writing really goofy, funny, um, very B-rated, low budget films, and they're awesome. And I loved highlighting that stuff and getting to highlight the work of these artists from their teenage years through into their middle-aged world where they are now. And they're still making art, and they're even more talented than they ever were. Like, they're pumping stuff out, and it's really amazing to work with them. And it's something that I want to continue to do with other artists with these same artists, but also other artists around the world, to find who's making art, who came from or were associated in some way, or still dealing with some of the issues from this religion. And there's continuous art being sent to me, which is really exciting, because thought I was maybe striving after something difficult or like just nostalgic and in the past, but this group of people in Minneapolis aren't the only people who had something to say through their artwork. Primarily, there's musicians, but there's also a lot of filmmakers coming up now who have these stories to tell, and they have the skills and access and knowledge and budgets to tell these stories. And it's a really exciting time to see art being made on a much grander scale. And I'm super happy to bring that to everyone, like help find it and then put it out into one place where we can all sort of like rally around it and then support them and share their art. And maybe you want to buy their art, maybe you buy vinyl, maybe you like to watch musicals. There's this great musical I just saw called Tate. What's his last name? I forget his last name, but his musical is called Birthmark, or Birthmark, I think. Amazing telling of a story through music. And I am so blown away, actually, by that one. I keep finding musicians here on the West Coast who made music on the inside and now are artists on the outside, and they have amazing things to say about their experience through music. And it's something that um, it's just sort of been an evolution where to make people feel comfortable, I'm now going on camera with them because then they feel like they feel comfortable and we can be equals on camera and share that story in a sort of in a conversational way rather than me asking questions and getting answers back that I might be able to turn into sound bites, but like it's very artificial and like a strange thing to have to cut through. So I started doing on camera interviews and Zoom calls through the pandemic. Um, and it's fun. I enjoy it, but it's also like me putting my face in public, which is not my intention originally, but it's sort of evolved into a better a better end result. And I found that I actually really love it. And I love the dynamic I have with the people that I'm working with. And it's I'm trying to do something bigger with it all, where I have developed a grant project. So I want to sell the art to the people who care about it and have most of the profits of that go to the artist. And the project as it is right now, 20% will go to 80% goes to the artist, and another 20 goes to the grant. And then that grant, you can apply for it. And the people in the film who you're going to get to know will be the ones taking a look at your art ideas and then deciding who gets the first grant. And then ideally, as this keeps on moving and more people join the Patreon to watch Witness Underground, there's a lot more going on there. There's the Witness Underground, the film. There's my other film, Hanoi Mixtape. There's the XJW Coming Out interview series, which I have a backlog of a lot of interviews and content that I have to cut still, um, coming up in the future. And the podcast. So this interviewing people on camera for the YouTube channel under the XJW Coming Out project became the Witness Underground podcast, and I'm doing both when as they make sense. The podcasts I can talk to someone online, schedule a time, record the interview, and then cut it in like a week. I have it on the internet. Whereas the video project is like takes months to do one. And I can always scale it up by hiring someone. But at this point, it's me. So it's all there. And the grant is like the most unique piece of it. I've never seen anything like that. And it's something I saw. There's a lot of activism in the XJW space where someone has a YouTube channel and they can fund their life as like a project, and it encourages them to keep going, and it rallies community together through Patreon or YouTube subscriptions, and you can join them on YouTube, and it's great. And I want that to keep going, but I want to do something where it's focused on the art and the artist. So the project is it's more circular, where the artist supports their lives and you support the channel while also giving back to the grant, which then brings on new artists. And then we can foster them and watch their work develop over time as they use that money to go make that art and then come back on to show us the art, and then we can experience the art. And that's the dream. And I'm excited to be working on that. It's my goal for this whole year to put all my energy and time and effort into this whole project and see where it takes me and see where it takes the community. And it's sort of my like big giving back to the XJW community. And to do that, I've had to learn how to run it as a business. And so right now, if you're wondering how this works and why the film is on Patreon, that's because it is a unique platform to fund creators to continue making and creating. And that is what all of this is me making and creating things with the goal of helping tell people's stories that need to be told, that are rarely told, while also fostering something positive and healthy for the community that I don't think exists at all yet. And all I want is to share audiences with all the other activists, to highlight artists that need an audience and might find it here through this project, at least some of it. And the best thing you can do for any of these artists that we're highlighting, if you like it, is to share their work and know that all the profits are going to that artist and to a future artist, that those same artists might even be involved in helping to mentor. as we build the XJW artist community, those same artists may want to be involved on a deeper level, and I'm very open to that, giving them access to giving the new artists who are funding access to these artists who are already accomplished to collaborate, to work together, to give advice. And there's a lot of XJW artists in the world who've done very well for themselves, and I'm looking forward to reaching out to them and hopefully bringing them on, or at least like being in touch through this project. And it's something that, like, learning how to run a creative business is interesting, because I have always thought of myself as like music first. Businesses, it will just happen organically, or like something will just happen to you, or for you, or like a label will reach out and like support you, or the fans will just make it happen for you organically. But actually what I have to do is hire a company to edit the podcast, because making a podcast and turning it around in a week is great if that's the only thing you're doing. But to pump these out and to have high quality standards and also market them, which is what it takes to find new people who might love this thing, you have to pay a service, or like work 70 hours a week or something unsustainable. So I'll be hiring some low cost services that do this kind of stuff, to help support the work. And to make all this work, Patreon's maybe the most viable plan I've ever seen. By contrast, to give you an example, a film that's on Amazon Prime Video makes 1 cent per hour, down from 18 cents like 3 years ago. And even then, 18 cents per an hour of something I spent 5 years of my life on, isn't exactly like a fair trade, given that we pay Amazon so much money, right? Like, so for 10 people to watch, no, I think 10,000 views gets me $1.50 on Amazon. I'm not doing the math right. We'll go back to this math later. I'm not going to do that here. But it's some obnoxious thing. It's like 10. I was telling my friend the other day, I was like, 10 people on Patreon funding the project for 1 month is worth 10,000 views on Amazon, which makes me never want to put my film on Amazon, because all those people could become fans, but they don't have to do anything, and they're not really putting their money into the art. They're putting it into this mega corporation that's like one of the richest companies on earth. And guess who's taking the profits? The employees of that mega corporation. And it goes, almost none of it goes to the creators. And I find the thing incredibly exploitative. So when you give $10 on Patreon, my intention is to give 5x the value of that $10. And we have regular for example, we have regular patron video calls, and we have doing watch parties where we're running it like a film festival. So you're gonna watch the film. I mean, you maybe only want to watch the film once. People regularly tell me that it's the first time they cried during a documentary, and they cried 4 times, and they want to share it with all their friends, and they want to watch it again, which I've never heard about any other documentary ever, which is a huge honor to have someone say something like that. It happens to me too. And I've seen it like 700 times, because I have to watch it to make sure it looks perfect every time and find mistakes and fix them. And I'm finishing up that process right now, but I will be putting it out on some streaming platforms that do well for indie filmmakers. And there's only one I've heard of that actually does well, and that's the only one I hope to put it on as the alternative to joining the Patreon, is you can watch it on Tubi. It's not there yet. That's the goal. I will be putting it out. I'll be doing the work that it takes to get it on Tubi. It's an ad-based service, so you can watch it on Patreon ad-free right now, and join the community and be a part of that community. And I love meeting the people that join the Patreon. I just got off a call a minute ago with a bunch of patrons. But this film, or this project, if you watch it on Tubi, you're going to watch it with ads. That's the difference. So join the Patreon, have 5x the value of the money you're spending, and join a community that is probably going to become meaningful. And I'm sure friendships will come out of it. I've already connected in a very personal way with 4 people from the Patreon, just on one call. And it was awesome. I loved it. And such an interesting conversation, and such a camaraderie and mutual respect. It's like an incredible group of people already. And if you watch it on Tubi, that's fine, because some portion of that subscription money will come to me in a way that seems pretty fair. Like the ads that are on there, actually some significant portion goes to the film that is being watched. And that should be the model that's always existed. And that's the only channel I've ever heard that does it that way. And every indie filmmaker that I have met who is making content, they are using Tubi, and it's making them 80% of their revenue. And this film, we crowdfunded it. So that was a huge thing. Like my first time ever looking on the internet at Jehovah's Witness information was to discover if there was a community. And it turns out there's quite a vast bunch of different communities online. A lot of people are only a part of one group on Facebook, or they follow the Reddit, but I've joined all of them 5 years ago. And so I've just been seeing kind of the different trends and the different things people post and the different attitudes and like cultural norms of those different groups. And I'm hoping to connect them through art in a way, or like help, instead of just people posting about what's happening on jw.org with like, why is the leader just get kicked off the leadership panel of the governing body? Like everyone's talking about it, right? So that's the kind of stuff that's getting posted. Or like, what did they write in the Watchtower this month? Let's talk about each paragraph. And like, I find that to be like, you're still reading, still doing the thing that we all walked away from, right? You're reading their propaganda and their manipulative logical fallacies, and listening to their word usage and dialogue, and it's still programming. It's still manipulative and a twisting of ideas and words, and you're just, by regurgitating it, I don't think it's healthy, even if you're dissecting it and breaking it down. Like that's helpful for people who have just left or are thinking about leaving. But at some point we need to do something that's like moving beyond that. And I hope that this project, it's something I saw as like a need in the community, like something that didn't exist. Like everybody wants to see more media about child sexual abuse, and they want to see more media about blood transfusions being an act of evil, or they want to see news about the governments finally like taking an interest in this religion and realizing how they are evil in a number of ways. And that's fine. And my film does that in a way through it's because the real topic that it discusses is which circumstances these people were in and why the shunning began. And you will get to learn that. So like I am doing something, this is a form of activism, but it's something I wanted to make for the general public while also honoring the artists in a deep way, and making sure that even JWs, people who are active Jehovah's Witnesses, would be able to watch it and not like people like myself or like these artists who had an open mind, and they were doing some form of self-expression in the religion, probably a coping mechanism for the chaos of the mind control group that they were a part of. I mean, I felt that way. It was a big release to go home and play guitar for 2 hours and sing a song and write something, and then share it with my friends. Like that was amazing form of expression. People have that kind of attitude, or want to express themselves, or have the open mind enough to look on the internet at other information other than what is the propaganda and dogma of the religion, will be able to watch this film and have it affect them and get a message across without also offending them along the way. Like there's nothing really in the film that is taking an extremist view. It's very balanced. I feel like the people that that's mostly due to the people I interviewed. Like I'm open to, I mean, just like anyone else, I want to speak truth to power, especially if it's being misused as a sort of a journalist. And I'm happy to make content that's harder hitting. But to the credit of everyone I interviewed in this group of people from Minneapolis who are in the film, they were very careful to honor the friendships that they still had, or they still miss, or respect, I guess is maybe the best word, in the religion. And so we ended up with a product that was very respectful while also celebratory and nostalgic. And also when you learn about their exit paths, like there's some deep personal philosophies that they've learned over the decade plus, or 2 decades in some cases, since they've walked away from this community or been forced out of it, that are profound in a way that I deeply respect, and I feel like parallels my story and my journey as well. And I'm so excited to share it with you, and I'm so excited for you to watch it. Like people are posting on Reddit amazing reviews right now for the film that just, I couldn't imagine better things to be written about a piece of art. So thank you. And I hope to hear from you, and I love when people post about it. It's means a lot. So witnessunderground.com is where you can find out about the film, the crew that made it, the people in the movie, the art grant, the music. Oh, that's another thing I didn't say. Okay. So another thing I'm trying to do is to support the artists is to make a store where you can listen to or simply buy the art, purchase the art, interact with the artist. I guess mostly just purchase the art. That's the idea. You can get to know about that particular art by listening to the podcast. And season 1 is all on YouTube, so it's like direct video interviews with the artist, and then we highlight their art in some way. A great example is highlighted on the website of Witness Underground on the podcast tab. All the entire season 1 is there, lit in a grid of YouTube videos that you can see, and there's a little tiny blurb about each one. And I highlighted an episode, part 1 and 2, featuring the Bloody Tuesdays, who are a band I came in touch with over the last year and a half. And Wesley David Music has some good episode parts in there. We talked with James Zimmerman in his house when we were doing the film festival in Minneapolis, the big Sound Unseen film and music festival. So we were there for the festival, and it was like the hugest and most amazing like event ever, like to highlight my film. It was so cool. There was like 120 people that I've never met, like came out to watch this film because it's about their community and their background. And in the big first day of winter, it's like a blizzard, and people are out to see this thing. And this, at the end of the pandemic or middle of the pandemic, I guess, late 2021, it was amazing. So we interviewed James, and he's an author of a book called Deliverance at Hand, and there's a subtext to it. I can't remember. Deliverance at Hand, and it's his exit story and his path in his life. Definitely check out his book. You can buy it on Amazon, and you can buy it directly through, I think it's freethought.org. I might be wrong about that URL, but you can buy it. So we highlight the artists, show off their work of art, and then you can directly buy it from the artist. Right now, all the money goes to the artist because that's how it's set up. But we will be changing that to put funds into the grant, the artist XJW grant through Witness Underground. And that's the kind of thing I hope to continue to do. And regardless of the future, what happens, I will always want to be doing this. So I imagine that I always will on some level be doing this. But right now, this is my 100% focus. And if you are willing to support it, it would mean a lot to me, and it will just help the channel grow and help me make more content in a sustainable way. That's why it's on Patreon, and it's the only place you can watch it. It will be on Tubi for the same reason, but for a wider reach, and that may be it. But I'm open to suggestion, and the journey is just beginning with that. So thank you for checking in and watching this video. Like, subscribe to the channel. That helps us out in a big way with the algorithm, and I'll probably will put a lot more stuff on YouTube coming up. So having 1,000 plus subscribers, that's a big deal for me and for the channel. What else I want to say? I think that's it. Thank you so much for checking in. Patreon.com/Witness Underground. Support the project, the movement, the artists in this space, and there will be many, many more. I have a long list of people to interview. And if you want to learn more right now, witnessunderground.com. Check out what's there. There's a lot of stuff already from the last 7 years of content. And yeah, hope to see you in the Patreon. Take care. See you.